Hello everyone, Michael Zadai here. I'm going to continue my teaching on political Islam. This is the second installment. If you didn't hear the first one, please go back because I'm building on each one. We're going to start looking at a definition. This is what we're looking at. We looked at the 5 religious pillars of Islam. We looked at what jihad is. There's 2 types of jihad. But now we're going to look at what a kafir is, okay? And I'm taking a lot of my information from Bill Warner, PhD, Warner, and it's a self-study course on political Islam. I would encourage you to order it. It's not that big, easy to read, and educate yourself. We need to be educated on what Islam really is, and their vision for the world. And even now, as I'm teaching, Muslims are attacking Israel in the Middle East. So let's look at what is a kafir. Kafir. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but a Muslim is forbidden to enter any religious aspect of life with a kafir. That is, Islam treats the kafir as being outside of Islam and has an extensive doctrine on how to deal with kafirs. That's a kafir. You have Christians, Jews, and kafirs. So, in other words, a person who's not a Jew or Christian or Muslim. As an example of the political nature of being a kafir, there are many references in the Quran to hell, and the kafir is in hell. But the reason a kafir is in hell is not because he did anything that was morally wrong, such as theft or murder, but simply because the kafir did not believe that Muhammad was the prophet of Allah. So Islamic hell is a political prison for intellectual dissenters. The other basic thing about Islam is that it does not have the golden rule. Indeed, Islam denies the truth of the golden rule. In Islam, there is no such thing as humanity. Instead, the world is always seen as being divided into the kafir and the believer. Humanity is not seen as one body. Once you have that fundamental division, you no longer have the golden rule, because the golden rule is to treat others as you would want to be treated, and that means all others. Islam does not work like that. Islam instead is based upon submission and duality. Submission because the word Islam means submission, and that all others must submit to Islam. Now, all others having to submit to Islam is also a political statement. The political aspect of submission is that the kafir must submit to the Muslim and the Islam. The other principle that Islam is based upon is duality. We will see this in great detail when we study the Quran. But we've already seen duality in the Muhammad of Mecca and the Muhammad of Medina. And these 2 men were not the same. All right, let's look at political Islam. Islam is the most successful political system on the face of the earth. For 1400 years, Islam has slowly expanded. In only 2 cases in the history of Islam has it ever been driven back. Once in Spain in 1492 and the other in Eastern Europe in 1683. Other than those 2 times, Islam keeps expanding. It expands on a daily basis. Indeed, as we will discover later, the power of political Islam increases every day in Europe and the United States. We like to think that liberal democracy is the most powerful force on the face of the earth, but liberal democracy is only 200 years old and is very difficult to implement, whereas political Islam is 1400 years old and quite easy to implement. And once it is in place, it always stays in place. Once a nation becomes Islamic, the only thing that can change it is force from the outside. As occurred in Spain, where the Moors were driven out of Spain. Otherwise, there's never been a case of revolution inside of an Islamic country. By revolution, here we mean that one that eliminated Islam as the driving political force, not a change of rules. Political Islam is very effective. There have been over 270 million people killed by jihad over the last 1,400 years. Islam has been very successful in the business of slavery. For 1,400 years, it has enslaved the kafir. And we will have an entire lesson on how Islam has enslaved the European, the African, the Asian. Political Islam has a phenomenally successful political ideology. 20% of the world is Islamic. The other 80% is made up of kafirs. We need to understand that kafir culture includes the Christian, the Jew, the Hindu, the Buddhist, the atheist. It includes Chinese, Australians, and Africans. It includes the animists, that is those who believe the world is a spiritual affair. So kafirs are everybody but Muslims. Now here's what's important about that. Kafirs need to understand that so far as Islam is concerned, there is not the slightest bit of difference how a kafir is treated, whether he's an atheist, Christian, Jew, or Hindu. It doesn't make any difference. For instance, Christians make a great deal of distinctions among themselves, and for that matter, so do Buddhists. But from the viewpoint of Islam, all kafirs are the same. They deny Muhammad. They deny the Sunnah of Muhammad, the teachings of Muhammad. And all kafirs deny the truth of the Quran. Kafirs are also those who don't believe that Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. An infidel can be a Jew or a Christian. Therefore, the term infidel is a religious term. Another term used by Islam is polytheist, many gods. This too is a religious term. Atheist is a religious term. And one last term that Islam uses for kafir is peoples of the book. And this refers again to Christians and Jews. Those terms, pagan, infidel, polytheist, the atheist, and people of the book are religious words. And remember, this lesson series is not at all about religion. That's the reason kafir is the word to use, because an infidel is a kafir. A polytheist is a kafir. A pagan is a kafir. Atheist is a kafir. And people of the book, Jews and Christians, are kafirs as well. So we will use the term kafir. We will be studying the death of 200, I don't know why I keep messing up there, 270 million kafirs over 1,400 years in jihad. That's 60 million Christians, 80 million, now this is history, that 270 million people who were killed by in jihad, 60 million were Christians, 80 million were Hindus, 10 million Buddhists, and 120 million Africans of various religions. But now we have to recognize one more thing about the kafir, and that is this. Kafir displays little interest in learning about Islam. We will study in this series why kafirs never refer to the injury of Islam and why kafir Christians don't know how Turkey and Egypt went from being Christian to Islamic. That's right. The area of Turkey, Asia Minor, is the richness of the early church was there. When you read Revelation and John's message to each of those churches, all of those churches, the Church of Ephesus and all of them were in the Asia Minor, or what is now present-day Turkey. They're not Christian anymore. They're thoroughly Islamic. Egypt went from being Egyptian to Christian to Muslim. Why do Buddhists never talk about the fact that Islam has killed 10 million Buddhists? You can find some Hindus who are willing to discuss the destruction of 80 million Hindus, but they're rare. So one of the things that we will study in this series is why Kafirs fear and dread Islam so much that Kafirs refuse to study their own history. We will study why European Kafirs never refer to the fact that 1 million Europeans, 1 million, were taken into slavery. Kafir and Islam is what this entire series is about. It's all about the politics of Islam. Since Islam is a complete civilization, that is to say, since Islam contains everything it needs within itself, it has no need of Kafir civilization. It destroys Kafir civilization. In every case, once Islam rises to political power in a country, the original civilization is destroyed. When you go to Egypt today, you don't see any signs of the original Coptic or Christian civilization that was in Egypt. It's gone. Everything about it has disappeared. Even the names that people use, the names of the city, all change. Islam is a complete civilization, and therefore when a country becomes fully Islamatized, there is no trace whatsoever of the original civilization, and that is one of the marks of Islamic politics. The basics of Islam are the 5 pillars: jihad, submission, duality, and the kafir. Once you understand those words, you can now understand how political Islam has destroyed civilizations for 1400 years. Got a little bit more time left here. Now we're going to look at jihad. Jihad was Muhammad's greatest invention. It made him successful. Jihad is a misunderstood word. Most jihad is done with money and persuasion, not violence. It is jihad that fills Washington, D.C. with money to buy influence. It is jihad that causes our textbooks in our schools to never mention anything negative about Islam. Jihad surely is one of the most famous Arabic words. Jihad does not mean holy war, although it includes holy war. Jihad actually means struggle, which, in a much better way to see it, is because jihad includes much more than war with violence. Jihad can be done with the sword, the mouth, the pen, and with money. The Quran defines jihad as fighting in Allah's cause. The Quran lays out the vision of jihad. You have the Sirah, S-I-R-A, and that's Muhammad's biography, lays out the grand strategy of jihad. The Hadith, which are the traditions, give us the tactics, all the small details about what needs to be done. And of course, all of these things are modeled upon Muhammad, because Muhammad is not only the perfect Muslim, but he's also the perfect jihadist. You can see how important jihad is when you read Muhammad's biography. Jihad takes up 2/3 of the Sirah. There was only a 9-year period in which he pursued intense jihad, but the number of pages that are devoted to it give you an idea of how important it was. The importance is this: Muhammad did not succeed until he turned to jihad. It is only natural that Muslims would look to jihad as their most successful strategy and therefore record the most about it. Now, let's take care of one issue. Muslims frequently say, well, the real jihad is inner struggle, the spiritual struggle. This is the greater jihad. The jihad of the sword and war is the lesser jihad. But the Hadith tells us about the greater jihad, the inner spiritual struggle. But only 2% of the Hadith are devoted to this kind of struggle. The other 98% are about killing the kafirs. That's us. Is jihad an inner struggle? Yes. Is jihad killing the kafir? Yes. Notice again we have duality. There are 2 ways to view jihad. A Muslim may choose whichever he needs for the moment. Let's look at an example that everyone remembers. On September 11th, 2001, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were attacked by Muslims in an act of jihad. It was said by Muslims that the jihadists had hijacked their religion. But let's look and see, because when you understand jihad, it comes from the Quran and the Sirah and the Hadith, and you will discover that everything about 9/11 was by the book. This was not the first time the World Trade Center had been attacked by jihadists. In 1993, an attempt was made to bring about down the Twin Towers with a massive bomb placed in the basement. It didn't work, but it didn't matter because the second time it did. The second time was practiced over and over. When it all came down to September 11th, they had been through it many times. This is modeled on the example of Muhammad. When Muhammad turned to jihad, the first time he sent his men out to kill and rob, they failed. They didn't find anyone to rob. The second try was also a failure, as with the third and several consequent subsequent attempts. But when they went out for the 8th time, they were successful. 9/11 is just Muhammad's jihad. Another way, it was like jihad was the Muslims after 9/11 said, we're the real victims. Muslims were the ones who were really hurt. Again, this is precisely like Muhammad did it. When his 8th attack was successful, he was accused by the Arabs of violating all the rules of war because he attacked during the holy month of Ramadan. The Quran replied to this and said that what the Meccans, the Kafirs, had done to Muhammad was far more than serious than being killed. It was true that the Meccan Arabs had run Muhammad out of the city, but they didn't harm anyone. When the Muslims killed the Kafirs, they said, we're the real victims here, not the dead Kafirs. Another way in which 9/11 was modeled after Muhammad is this. Muslims claimed, we are the religion of peace. The veil of the religion of Islam was used to hide the political act of jihad. This has been done before as well. Muhammad always covered his political actions with religious necessity. The World Trade Center was chosen as a target for 2 reasons. The first reason was it was a trade center, a business center. It was the hope of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden that destroying the World Trade Center would paralyze the American economy. Because you see, jihad, whenever possible, was an economic attack. Muhammad's attack on the caravans were to gain wealth for himself and to remove wealth from the Kafirs. Okay, ran out of time. We're going to look more into jihad and 9/11. Please tell your friends about this, and please give it a listen. And if you have any comments or questions, please, message me on Messenger. Okay, blessings.